Good morning, everyone. It's good to see you this morning. Thanks for being here. Thanks for sharing your time with me and what we've got going on here. Um, Excuse me while there we go. Um, what a wonderful day it is. Here we are on Wednesday, right at the end of August, getting close to September, looking at what's coming forward. You know, I've been studying a lot over this whole life, really, but particularly over the last 45, uh, 45 years, plus or minus, and looking at everything that I was taught and everything that I was trained to hold near and dear and to accept as valid in this life. And after that much study, it's become really clear to me that many of the general attitudes that I was given as a child do not play out in this three-dimensional plane or in this world that we live in. Um, I didn't like that for years. I mean, I resisted that understanding for years. And what we know and what we're trained, cancel that, cancel that. What I have observed over this amount of time is that what I resist persists, and what I let go moves on. And so I have the opportunity on a regular basis to choose the condition of my reality by what I choose to experience and let go, and what I choose to resist and say it ought to, oh, this ought to be different. This should be different. This isn't right. I don't like this. Why? Why me? Why am I experiencing this? I'm a good person. Why does this stuff happen to me? All of that type of resistance has caused me an incredible amount of undue struggle. And the reality is that I resist much less today, finally, at 68 years old, than I resisted as a younger man. And my life is much less complicated today than it was before. And one of the things that I have stopped resisting is being able to embrace myself as I am, not only from a spiritual point of view, in that I am the presence of God wherever I am, that whole experience of being one with all that is, but also in the material experience of who I am. I've had to choose to simply acknowledge that it is so, that there are certain things in this life, on this three-dimensional plane, that manifest at certain times that I do not approve of. That doesn't make them right or wrong or good or bad. It simply is that I do not approve. And this is a free will planet. This is a free will vibratory rate. This is a free will dimension. And I have the ability to choose. I have the ability to choose what it is that I accept and look at and realize and acknowledge, and I have that which I can choose to resist. I held it for myself that it was totally wrong to be frustrated when I'm driving up the road and someone pulls out in front of me unexpectedly. I would say things behind the wheel that I'm not proud of, and I'm not going to share with you because most of them are vulgar. Yet, as I've observed it and finally came to a place where I could simply sit as an observer and be present to what's happening, I became less and less incised by the activity because I allowed and or I embraced the knowingness that whomever is in that car and whoever is pulling out in front of me are not doing it because it's me. It's not personal. It's not directed at Paul. It's general. It either comes from lack of concentration on their part or being in a hurry or simply not of being aware that I was there or simply trying to get out in front of me because they don't want to follow. But it's not personal. They're not doing it to me. They're simply doing it. And if I don't own that it's happening to me because of who I am, then I can let it go much, much, much easier. It's also necessary that I look in the mirror and embrace who I am. So I am a guy who's 68 years old, who has over the last 6 months put on, at the very least, 15 pounds that I don't need. And I can look in the mirror today and I can say, you put on 15 pounds. And then I have an opportunity. I can choose to actually take action as to whether that should be addressed or not. My blood sugar tends to run high. I'm told that I'm like a borderline diabetic, and therefore an extra 15 pounds is not in my best interest from a general health point of view. But does that make me a fat slob? Does that make me less than because I am carrying 15 pounds that I could easily do without? No. Does it make me lazy because I'm not getting up and going and doing some walking and stuff? No. What it does mean is that I choose to do something else and maybe I need to change my priorities. But it's not necessary for me to put myself down to make myself wrong any longer. We were taught many, many things, each of us as children. Generally speaking, I was born in 1952 and I was trained to believe that I was born with original sin. I was born into a Christian family in a Christian world, and what came with that was that I was born with original sin and that Jesus died on the cross to relieve me of that sin. So effectively, I was trained that I was responsible for a man to be crucified some 2,000 years ago. And what I know today is that is not so. I realize today that that teaching is not so, is not legitimate in this reality, in this understanding. I live in a free will dimension. I can choose who and what I am. And I can choose to shape myself to fulfill that which I say I am. Therein lies great freedom. The embracing of the fact that I am able and willing to choose exactly who I am and how it is that I get there is incredibly freeing. Incredibly freeing. So the other day, I looked up the word or the noun mystic. And according to Merriam Webster, a mystic, a proper, excuse me, a mystic, a noun, is a person who seeks by contemplation and self surrender to obtain unity with or absorption in the deity or the absolute, or one who believes in the spiritual apprehension of truths that are beyond the intellect. Reading that and realizing for myself who I am and how I choose to operate in this world that I live in, I realize I am a mystic. When I first said that to myself, every fiber of my body rejected it and resisted it. You can't be a mystic. You're just a regular old guy who's lived 68 years, who's the son of a pipe fitter, the son of a homemaker and a cemetery sexton. You're not special. You're not available. You don't know enough. You don't have magic in your fingers. That's the already always conversation that formerly ran in my head. It no longer runs in my head today. I am able to embrace the fact that I, at the absolute minimum, believe in the spiritual apprehension of truths that are beyond my intellect. And as a result, I'm a mystic. And once I embrace myself as a mystic, it opens up vistas, it opens up views, it opens up possibilities that I never knew existed previously. It opens up a possibility of understanding. It opens up validating sitting here talking to you on this computer today and looking at you and saying clearly, I am the presence of God wherever I am, and so are you, and so are you. And you, whoever you are, wherever you are capable and given the value of free will in this three-dimensional plane to choose who it is and what you are on a moment by moment basis. That all comes from observing myself, from looking at myself from a non judgmental place, simply viewing myself as I would view a bird outside my window, sitting on a branch with absolutely no opinion or attitude about what I'm observing. It took time to learn how to do that. I didn't know how to do that like that. I had to work on it. I had to be able to give myself the freedom to observe myself without any opinion about it. Simply observe what's happening. For me, it came from people watching. It came from sitting on a bench in a 20th century experience known as being at the mall. It came from sitting in airports, waiting on flights, and simply watching people do what they do without any idea of, well, that's right or that's wrong or they don't know what they're doing or whatever it is. And I released each one of those things that I just said one at a time because I was a judgmental, fearful competitor in this three-dimensional plane. I spent, at the very least, 2/3 of this life that I have lived in competition to prove to you or whomever was involved that I was at the very least as good as you are. And in most cases, better. And I set myself up in every case to be alone, to be isolated, to be surrounded by fear. So I learned to observe objectively what's going on. I learned to observe myself objectively and say, does this suit you, Paul? Does this behavior serve you, Paul? Does this behavior forward your commitment, Paul? And answer those questions honestly. And so, from being the observer, I have come to realize that I am free. I am the divine presence of God wherever I am. And I realize that I am that because I choose it. And then, as a result of choosing it, I do my best to promote that presence here in this three-dimensional plane. There is nothing already wrong here anyway. There has never been anything already wrong here anyway. God, as I understand God, does not make mistakes. God, as I understand God, operates in divine order in every situation and has operated through divine order for the entire existence of life on planet Earth. There's not one mistake. There has never been a mistake. Ever. Everything that I think is right or wrong, or good or bad, or up or down, is not. Everything simply is. And if it's my chosen path to experience a particular activity in this three-dimensional plane, I will experience it. if I am not experiencing something that I might see on the news or that I might see in a movie or that I might even observe somebody else doing, it's simply because it's not mine to do. I have not chosen of my own free will to participate in this moment in that activity. That is huge understanding, huge, and beyond all that we can possibly imagine, beyond all that we can possibly imagine. It's not as hard as we think it is. It just takes realizing that the lion's share of how I was trained to exist, excuse me, and coexist on this three-dimensional plane in this life is not so. The reality is everything and everybody is not out to get me. The reality is that generally speaking, no one and no thing really gives a big concern about Paul Fitzsimmons. The person who's most focused on and most concerned about Paul Fitzsimmons is Paul Fitzsimmons. And Paul Fitzsimmons has a Paul Fitzsimmons filter. And so Paul Fitzsimmons looks at everything through his Paul Fitzsimmons filter and comes up with an idea that everything matters as a result of Paul Fitzsimmons. But when I remove that filter, when I become the observer, who is in fact observing myself, the expansion is unbelievable. Just for a moment, vision yourself as the observer and the observed simultaneously, happening at the same time. I am the observer, and I am that which is observed at the same time. In this is freedom. I am who I am as a result of choice. I choose to be Paul Fitzsimmons. I choose to be a mystic. I choose to be committed to sharing with myself and anyone who will sit down or stand up or lay down and give me a minute to speak and listen to what is coming through me to say. My message is, I am the presence of God, and you are the presence of God. And there is very little, if any, distinction between us. We are the same thing. As an example, think about an ocean. An ocean is made up of individual drops. Each drop is a drop. There's very little or no distinction between those two drops. Or a snowflake. If there is a pile of snow outside my window, Each snowflake is unique. Each snowflake is somehow a little different than the next snowflake. Yet, each and every snowflake is of the exact same composition, the exact same composition. And all together, they make a pile of snow. And all together, those drops in the ocean, those individual drops, create a sea. I am the presence of God wherever I am. You are the presence of God wherever you are. You are bestowed as the presence of God with divinity. You are bestowed as the presence of God with dominance, with dominion over this three-dimensional plane. You can look out your window right now and see whatever you see and decide for yourself whether what you see is good or not good. And therefore it is. That's the power of free will. That's the power of free will. That's the power of choice each of us have. That's the power of experiencing myself as the presence of God as I am, and experiencing you as the presence of God as you are. And there is nothing already wrong here anyway. And so what shows up for me is a song. I am the light of God. I am the love of God. I am the power of God. I am the presence of God. Wherever I am, God is. You are the light of God. You are the love of God. You are the power of God. You are the presence of God. Wherever you are, God is. We are the light of God. We are the love of God. We are the power of God. We are the presence of God. Wherever we are, God is. And all is well. Thank you for being with me today. I salute you as the presence of God wherever you are. I acknowledge you as the same essence as myself. Namaste. Namaste. Namaste.